Okay, so in 1994, before the internet was mainstream, this is the kind of thing that I would have been looking at, and maybe some of you would have too. It's a PBX. It's just a basic system that you would use for communicating and sending files, all the kind of stuff that we're doing today, just on a text-based system. Maybe some of you have used it, or not, but yeah. To make it more interesting, we just threw colours in and yeah, just to try and get... But usability wasn't front of mind when this was happening. It was more about ability, just actually getting connections and having something happening. And of course, you know the history of technology is just flowing from there. So this is where it comes down to my purpose and drive for Joomla. Several years ago, kind of found this group, very happy to, and watched it change and watched my skill level change. And I feel really proud when I come to these meetings, basically because I feel I can get things done, and you know, it's not just me tapping away at a computer by myself anymore. I can come to a group, and it's more than that for me now. So. And I think a lot of you are driven by this kind of usability concept where you want people to be using a system and you want to provide them with something that they'll remember, they'll feel good about. And I think for me that's the core of why I do what I do. So perhaps maybe some of you can relate to that. Common sense. I don't want to be cliche, but it does have to be said. It's not that common. One of those things that lines. That's alright. I'll read that for you. So the common thing here is transport, and the evolution of technology, as I was mentioning before, is still happening on this slide. The key here is almost an automated system where the horses are drawing the carriage and the people just direct, okay, go left or right. If there's imminent danger, the horses are generally going to stop. That's not my point though. Moving on is here, we've got the next iteration of one of the first cars. Looks very similar, and the reason why is usability. Because people are familiar with the car, horse and cart. One of my favourites here, Trans Am. Don't really need to say too much besides that the trees around it would probably shrivel up if you turn it on, because it's just going to suck the life out of the ecosystem, where this more battery-powered electric hybrid automated from Stanford, this vehicle here, is almost doing a full circle on the horse and carts, because it also can drive itself. It's a driverless automated car, and a lot of people aren't really aware of this kind of thing happening, and then they might think, well, I don't really want to know about it because I don't want a car to drive for me. But the way we're heading is usability. This is the drive. You've got to wonder who's driving it. Well, is it users are asking for this? I mean, I don't really think so. Is it a developer's goal to be producing this car? Maybe, but there is other, with all of these images, there is other elements that need to be considered. And I'm going to keep coming back to these goals. Business goals, user goals, designers and developers, which so we need to consider what it is that we want to achieve, not just for ourselves. And being considerate of expectations of users is key here, I would think. So the cons of usability is time and money. That's what it comes down to. Can you now take these tools we're going to talk about and factor that into the price for a quote for your next project? Can you do that, or do you need to absorb it? Do you even need to consider this? It might not be something you need to do, but yeah, it's definitely got benefits. We've got satisfaction, repeat business. With less frustration, you've generally got a more solid product. People are more confident in what you're doing, and those goals might be selling something. That's probably the most common e-commerce system. But it also might be signing someone up for a Joomla User Day or something like that. Those are also the same. You need to be able to get from A to Z. So these key three things at the bottom here, less training, support and development, are probably where you're really going to be putting forth on that quote. If you can really try and get a bit more leniency on your quotes, get some, really kind of push that training aspect, because a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, if I can cut my bills for training and support, then this is going to be a cost that I can absorb. Development time gets cut purely because you found shortcuts while doing your usability test, rather than just getting excited and starting to get knee-deep in the code or design. You can actually start to take a step back and do a bit of the work, which is basically for the user's benefit. So yeah, the key thing is really cutting costs. I only just found out about mind maps about a year or so ago. I think, can I get a quick show of hands? How many people have actually used a mind map before? It's like, instead of a bullet list, which I can't really connect the items to, I can just lay everything out, and I just like to see things that way. So my mind map's going to look very different to yours, even if it's on the same topic. These problem-solving steps kind of go without saying, but I do need to say it. You know, defining the goals is the key here. Again, at the start, there's a business goals you need to consider, user goals, and also those goals also could be problems as to what it is about the website that you do need to consider. Why are people dropping off at a certain point? And kind of brainstorming why that is onto post-it notes would be a nice idea. You'll see why later. But yeah, just getting those ideas down, getting to the root of the pain, really. So that's that mind map I was mentioning. Might be a bit too small on that page, but yeah. So you generally start in the middle. The usability framework. I'm just going to outline that for you right there, and then you work outwards. I'm just going to talk about the main branches: testing and problem solving. They're the two main ones. And generally you draw them a bit thicker, but you can see how it all ties in together. And yeah, I find that a lot better than a bullet list. It's up to you though, you don't have to use that. So continuing problem solving, an affinity diagram is a fancy word. It really is. But basically it's taking those post-it notes from the brainstorm and grouping your items and just trying to find, unearth that pain that people are experiencing or the goal that's not being achieved, and this should help find a connection. And these are the things that you would do even before the website's built, way before. It's almost like building a quote for a client. You can almost do it then. This ties directly into card sort, which is very similar. It uses the same cards, the post-it notes, and what you can do is you can write down you can sort out the taxonomy of your website by writing down what it is, the items that you're trying to sort into their proper categories, and you're doing that by giving the users the cards and the post-it notes and let them solve your website problems rather than you sit down with the managers and try and figure things out. All you have to do is write down the items, select a bunch of users, and give them the cards. So basically, like a room here, if I gave you all the cards, you would then order them, and you would find a pattern. There would be a pattern with all of us.
I feel like I'm flying through this, which is good. Personas. So this is the fun part in life where you get to generalise people, and you could we talk about teenagers might be a target audience. Talk to the marketing people because they generally know what it is that you're targeting to. And if it's, for example, if it's a teenager, they might eat fast food, they might have a crappy little car, they got time on their hands, etc., etc. So the reason that's an optional thing. This is starting to move into the tools that you will use to actually build a usability test. So yeah, you'll take that, and it's an optional item, but you could definitely use that later on. So the task analysis is something that it's quite deep. It can be very, very deep. And I warn you not to get caught up in the analysis paralysis situation where you're trying to solve problems and you're getting deeper and deeper. And at some point you do need to have a cut off and say, okay, I've spent half an hour on this. It's not getting any better, so walk away. But doing this definitely helps with getting from A to Z with your website goals, because I don't know if you can see that. There's a program here, and I don't recommend buying a program. Pen and paper is fine for this. But they've used as an example how to feed the chickens. You would go to the yard, get the feed. These are elements, these are tasks that need to be done in order to feed the chickens, and then spread the feed on the ground. You would say if it was difficult, yes or no. Well, that's relative later on in reporting, but yeah. So these are tools that are just kind of pointing you in a direction that I didn't know before. So I found them useful with some of the projects, definitely nutting out a lot of the bugs and getting things sorted out before I even started. Yeah, so like milking the cow, preparing the milk, finding the cow, those are the tasks that you need to do to milk a cow. Yeah, I often think that we need to be considering websites as if they're people that kind of need help, and we are kind of website counsellors in a way. You need to find out the user's feelings and thoughts while they're using the website, and this will help find the problems and get strategies to deal with these issues. Okay, so this is going into the core of the test. This is not optional. A contextual inquiry is a definite must. You must have time in your usability test to sit down with the person, whether it's in front of the computer or whether it's on a pen and paper situation where they're going through a mock-up you might have designed, and you take down notes on where they're getting stuck, what they don't understand, because the system's not perfect, and the user's not perfect, but you can definitely try and weld the problem together by finding it out what it is that they're having trouble with. You can go a step further. If your client's quite a large organisation, you could even take some proof to them, not that they really care about that stuff, but you could videotape them with a free program called Cam Studio, and you can videotape what they're doing on the computer. You can videotape themselves, the audio, so the whole experience is if they're there. You can record that, watch it later, find out all the details that you might miss when you're in the moment. So I think these things, I think these are very important, this contextual inquiry. If you take anything away, it'll be that one. The heuristic evaluation ties in to the top one. With the contextual inquiry, you generally would let the person do that on their own. You wouldn't necessarily bug them. You just sit there quietly and don't even help them. Just let them do it. Take it all in what they're doing. And that's really the key, is to bite your lip, because it'll be tempting. They'll say, I don't get it, what do I do? You just write that down. As simple as that. But however, the heuristic evaluation, you've got a set of rules that you want to kind of follow, and you have these, for example, it says with the questions here, the answers, the questions I was asking regarding the usability test, did you find the game enjoyable? Was the game I was testing, and why? And this would be done, you could do this during, but this would be done after. And then they just respond, and you put any comments to that element while they're playing over there. That's a qualitative answer. And how do we get that right? Because quantitative is the numerical response, qualitative is the description with words. The reason why you do that is for reporting later, because if you're charging someone for this test, you need to say, look, you scored 5, or something like that. Some of the other questions I were asking were you aware of how long you were playing? Because the idea of the game is to get people sucked in and just lose time. So that's where heuristic was important to what I was trying to achieve there. It's a bit small, I apologise for that, but you get the point. So reporting, the reason why there's a golf ball there is because, as with golf, the object is not to get the highest score. And with this reporting, I'm trying to get a low score, or we all are anyway. So you've got 3 tasks. Tasks are something like the heuristic evaluation we might have done there, or tasks are from the task analysis. It's not too important. The problem is, though, something that you'll be accounting for, and you'll be encountered often, but ideally you want to have a score of 0 for a really good usability test. This column here with the 10, that's a more powerful problem, whereas this one's 1. You can have a bit more of that, gives you a bit of leeway. 10 being the person didn't buy it because they couldn't find a button. Simple. So, if the user found that problem twice, really, you can't go, nothing else matters. That's the key here. But, they might have had trouble filling in their name in a form, but they eventually got it. That might be a 2, and then 1 could be something else. Just superficial. Okay, so the principles of usability experience design is function and form are items that are existing in the system. Most guys here will either be programmers or designers, some are both. Girls as well, sorry, I apologise for that. Whether it provides the features you need is the function. So you generally have programmers will be more interested in the details of how the whole process works, how it's all happening. Whereas the form of the design of the website or the design of the site is basically you have designers, they're more interested in negative space, they're more interested in how it looks, and from a user's point of view, that's important, but so is the function. So function and form equals usability. You can't have necessarily more of one than the other, it's a balance. And I'm going to show you an example. I found this website to be very nice. Stumbled upon it the other day, I'm sure you've heard of the Australian Post. So these are some personals front and centre up there. They've put it in 2 different areas. So basically, you're being directed. They're finding out who you are. They've definitely done a usability test. They're just finding out who you are, and then they're ushering you to the right section. So they're not wasting your time, and that's the key here. Now, I'm an eBay addict. I go around with my phone and I take photos of things and I just start eBaying it. And I also buy things on eBay. It's just one of those things, you know, I buy something and then I sell it. And I figure out that the cost is only like $20 or $40 for a steering wheel, for example. And I thought, well, that's not so bad. I get to use that. But anyway, so more close to the point, I want to calculate postage for my customers. I just found the system so great. It was visual and functional all at once. It's got a matrix of questions that just looks so simple. So I'm a visual person. I like to look at the letter and I like to say, okay, I'm not sending a letter, I'm sending a parcel. So they're straight away, where am I going to? Done. Again, they've used a really good mix. In the background, this area here is Flash. People hate that, I don't care, I like it. And then this is JavaScript here. And then up here we got some images. Now, Joomla can handle this kind of system. There's no reason why they can't. But it takes you guys to produce a well-finished product. So I just find that this is a great mix of form and function. And after you've filled the form out, you get to choose what kind of parcel price you want. I chose regular. Gives me the price. There could not be any simpler way to doing that. They're just, that was it. They've simplified it. Simplicity. It's beautiful. Okay, so I'm wondering, can you guys see that? Is it clear or the text? Is it alright? Bit out of focus, yeah. Well, it's Gumtree. It's a website I stumbled upon the other day. The key thing is here, I could actually post an ad on here and I did not have to put a password in once. I was able to put my ad in and then send it off. It was done. And I was still surprised because I've got 400 passwords in the back of my mind. Last thing I want is another one. I prefer to use OpenID, but this system's beautiful. It's just for selling, so I don't really care if the security's not 100% high. It's plain text or whatever the problem is. But it doesn't need to be encrypted, it's just selling an item. But the accessibility is the key here. Yeah, Gumtree's got a more personal feel than eBay. If you wanted something that's more Australian, I think you'd go to Gumtree rather than eBay. So I'm almost done. I'm almost finished. Joomla 3 is coming out in September, and that's fantastic. The usability aspect of it, I think it's fantastic because it's always interesting to see when people make suggestions like usability in the back end. I think that's a fantastic idea. I hope it's coming through. I haven't actually checked as to what's happening, but it's
Alpha 2, right? Yeah, Alpha 2 as well.
But yeah, it's the idea of standardising the components area in the back end is a beautiful thing because I've created a component and I felt it unnecessary to create a design for the back end. Come in, they're following suit with Apple and they're taking usability into their Metro and they're basically keeping the key features which should be in the navigation area in all the apps that you'll see in the new Windows 8 which is coming out later this year. Will all have the same features, sorry, not the same features, different features, but they'll all kind of bolt into the same format that you're familiar with. So like, that's the width that you can have for that amount of space there is that's limited. So when you're creating a component for that Metro style there, you can either have that or those two sizes. That's really it. And that's key for the usability. That's because people need to be able to recognise that the same thing they saw last night is going to be on their computer even after they've had a few beers the next day. So they need that familiarity, and so do the developers. And Apple App Store has done that with their strict standards. And I hope Joomla also considers this soon. I think this will be evident in their new release. Thank you.